A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Pharisees and scribes came to Jesus from Jerusalem and said, "Why do your disciples break the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands before they eat." Then Jesus called the crowd to him and said to them, "Listen and understand. It is what comes out of the mouth that defiles." Then the disciples approached and said to him, "Do you know that the Pharisees took offense when they heard what you said?" Jesus answered, "Every plant that my heavenly Father has not planted will be uprooted. Let them alone. They are blind guides of the blind. And if one blind person guides another, both will fall into a pit."
Religiosity and spirituality are not one and the same. For the religiosity relates to external and spirituality relates to internal aspects of one's life. The Pharisees and the scribes are concerned about the external observances of their religion and not so much about its spiritual values. Whereas Jesus is concerned about the inner disposition of one's heart, where God dwells. For Jesus, God is not so much for the external rituals, but rather looks at the goodness and kindness of a person. A proper inner disposition of the heart leads to union with the divine and union with the fellow neighbors. Therefore, here at the Gospel, the real issue is that of man-made tradition versus God's law, which is love and mercy. It is true that Jewish traditions originated from good motives to be helpful guidance for people who might otherwise land up into confusion and chaos, into error and problems. But here, the real problem is the man-made tradition have become an authority in itself, neglecting the love of God and love of neighbor. When the Pharisees and the scribes questioned Jesus for allowing his disciples to ignore the ritual hand washing as required by the tradition, Jesus invites them to look beyond, go beyond the law. Jesus redirects the focus from that which enters into the mouth, the food and all that we eat, to that which springs from the heart. Our thoughts, feelings, motives, and actions. Jesus invites them to check their hearts. So the real issue here is what constitutes true holiness. For the Pharisees and scribes, true holiness consisted in following or observing the law. And dietary laws are an important part of the Jewish religious observances. In fact, the Torah mentions about food that are unclean. So here in the Gospel, it is not so much to do with your health or hygiene. Sure enough, if we eat bad food, spoiled food, we are going to be sick. But the real intention of Jesus is good and evil do not originate from the food that we eat, but from the heart. Heart is the place where good and evil originate and defile, make the person unholy, and break their relationship with God and their fellow human beings. Hence, Jesus cautions about it in the Gospels that evil thoughts, murder, fornication, adultery, theft, all they originate from the heart. The filth of our hearts find expression in the words of our mouth. And the words of our mouth lead to the deeds of our hands. Dear friends, Jesus invites us to clean all the filth of our heart that breaks our relationship with God, that breaks our relationship with the other. Are we willing to clean all the filth of our heart so that God, the Creator, can dwell in our heart?